Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube and we're going through our weekly quick tip. Before we get started, thank you guys so much for supporting this YouTube channel. We have reached over 700 subscribers and we're on our way to 1,000. If there are video topics that you have in mind, feel free to reach out to us via comment or message anytime and we can make those future quick tip videos. Without further ado, let's get right to it. So today we're talking about leg drive. As you're learning about paddling, leg drive becomes one of the most mystical parts of the paddle stroke. You will interact with paddlers or coaches that emphasize that 100% of the stroke success hinges on your ability to drive your legs through the stroke. Now, this is not incorrect, but the overemphasis on leg drive leads to a lot of mechanical issues with our movement throughout the paddle stroke. So let's talk about it. First, I'm going to explain the purpose of leg drive, how to achieve leg drive, and common mistakes revolving around using your legs. The entire point of using your legs within the stroke is to use the larger muscles below the waist to power the upper body, ultimately connected to the paddle, to power the stroke. So if we were exclusively arm paddling, the only thing moving is my hands, elbows, and shoulders through space. The thing that is moving my hands is the effectiveness of my elbows and my shoulders, and these are small muscles attached essentially to the paddle. What we want with our leg drive is that the extension of the leg leads to the movement of the hand throughout the stroke. As this knee is pushed forward, this hand is pushed forward, and if everything is moving correctly, the extension of my leg will move my hand. The success of the leg drive extends the knee, rotates the hip, rotates the shoulder, pushes the elbow, and then the hand. The success of the kinetic chain. As these joints are connected to each other, they make a chain, and the movement of the kinetic chain influences the ability of our paddle stroke to be successful. Every boat will have a different form of leg drive based on your lower body. In an OC6 or a dragon boat, you have the freedom to move your feet wherever you want. You can have one forward, one tucked up. You can move it 3 inches forward, 3 inches back. This freedom of motion of moving your legs around gives you a platform to effectively push off of that leg as you see fit. As we get into individual boats, this freedom of motion is gone because we have to keep our feet in specific locations to steer the vessel. Moving to the Outrigger Canoe, you are forced to have both feet in front of you and trying to find that same leverage. In the Outrigger Canoe, your heels are typically placed much lower than your sit bones. Moving leg drive into a Surfski, now your heels are much higher up in relation to your sit bones. Having both legs directly in front of you also influences this weight transfer and this ability to drive the legs. As we talk about in rotational forces, we want to unlock our ability to create the most amount of pressure possible using as many muscles as we can. The entire point of leg drive is to move your hips. With the overemphasis on the term leg drive and it being so important, this forces paddlers to move these joints without thinking about its larger impact on the kinetic chain. The legs moving by themselves do nothing to power your hands through the motion. Only by moving these knees and moving these hips can we now create force on these hands. My hands are moving exclusively because of my leg drive. But the leg drive's movement intersects at the hip. We don't want to move our arms exclusively and we don't want to move our knees exclusively. We want to try and move everything together. So the force that is found on this hand is coming from this knee, extending to push this hip, to push this shoulder, and come through. This is only possible using rotational forces. Like we talked about in our rotational force video, if we crease over here and try to push with both legs to sit up, it does not move the hands that effectively. Our rotational forces is how we can find the most amount of pressure on our hands and connect the entirety of the body to that movement. The common mistake again is pumping the legs and not moving the hips. This can be very confusing. If you are watching video of yourself paddling and you are looking at your knees moving to indicate that you have proper connection with the boat, with your kinetic chain and the paddle stroke, this will tell you that you're doing it right. But these hip bones not moving is the real factor that we have to address. All of our motion intersects at the hip. Leg drive powers the hips. The more you can move at the knee joint, the more room you have for your hips to move. But this also means that a limited amount of knee motion is fine as long as you're still focusing on moving your hips. How high these legs travel is only a partial indicator of the effectiveness of your hip rotation. Paddlers going from team boats that have leg freedom, allowing them to move their legs around to shift their weight and move their body more effectively, typically struggle in the smaller boats being locked into specific positions. Now you do not have the freedom to move this leg here or move this leg further out. You have to be able to operate with shifting your weight and shifting your hips with both legs in front of you. When you are locked into a specific position with your legs, there is a specific movement pattern that allows the entirety of the body to be engaged. Operating outside of that specific outline means you are not engaging the entirety of the body. Common mistake is pushing with both legs throughout the stroke. Pushing with both legs just means that you have so much weight on your hip bones and you're leaning back that you can push your legs freely like so. Shifting your weight to your legs in front of you, it is almost impossible to push off both of them in an effective way. If you use a Concept 2 rowing machine, you may try to force that movement into your small boat paddlecraft. Why does that leg drive of pushing with both legs work on the row machine? Because the seat can slide 3 feet back and forth. With seated paddle sports, our hip bones are in a specific spot. We cannot slide forward, we cannot push back. So if you are trying to use your legs in a way that mirrors a sliding seat, it does not translate to paddling. We have to shift our weight to one side to load the leg and to push off to unload the leg to effectively move the hips. If you want more information about using your hips to maximize and unlock the majority of your stroke and your paddle potential, check it out on k2nonlinepaddleschool.com. We have 200 videos specifically around technique, body position, blade position, and using the entirety of the body. Breaking down the body into the top hand, the bottom hand, hip rotation, leg drive, heel drive, breaking down the stroke into the setup, the catch, power, exit, and if you're in an outrigger canoe, the recovery. Putting all these big ideas together just takes a little bit of coaching and a lot of practice. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on YouTube today, and we'll see you next week on our next quick tip.